And we're live. Welcome everybody to another exciting episode of the Real Talk. Today's episode is actually is really fascinating for me. I ran into this dynamic duo, as I call them, on LinkedIn, on the LinkedIn webs, and they're just organic. They have a lot of energy. I saw a video for them. They want to lead with motivate, inspire with all media companies, all companies to be media companies. For me, that really resonated, and I'm like, who are they? I want to know who they are. I want to meet them. So I want to bring them on my show. And today I want to introduce Bryan DeLuca and Nicolette Emmino from Insomnicat Media. Hey guys.
Welcome. Hey Rob, how are you?
Hello.
How you guys doing?
Good. How are you today?
I am fantastic. I'm so excited. Thank you for coming on the show. I mean, you two, as I said, the dynamic duo, what you guys are doing out there, I was attracted to. I'm like, who are these two? How can I get to know them more? And that's where we're here today to share your guys' great wisdom and what is Insomnicat and everything, and what goes behind this and how it was created.
That's a deep question, Rob.
That's a deep question right off the bat.
As we're all a part of the electronics industry, and both of you, as I said, when I dug in deeper, I saw what all you guys are doing. You guys are all, I was very fascinated. I'm like, we're in the electronics, they're in publishing or marketing or, in journal. They're all in that. They were in the space. And I'm like, wait a minute. We have something in common. This is even better. I'm like, we can have something to talk about. And, through all the areas I've also done my research, all the videos you guys created, all the fun videos you guys have done, and other original, really connecting with the human connection and being your original self. It's been fantastic. But really, I want to get started is really understanding is, who is Insomnicat?
Wow. So how do we explain that, right? I mean, our goal, like you said, is teaching all companies to be media companies. We take a very sort of organic approach to what we do in terms of how we interact with companies, and knowledge and education, I think, is the biggest thing.
And much more than that.
Yes.
And so much more than that.
Yeah. The whole synopsis. He just puts that synopsis there. So no, let's take this back and let's start. I mean, as with Bryan, I know you had extensive history in the electronics industry. So, also a Nicolette as well. You both have been, I think you both also worked at the same company before, correct?
Yeah. I mean, in the engineering and electronics space, I think I've been in it pretty much my whole career, so for different organizations, different sites, different technologies. I mean, so pretty much, I've been in it pretty much since I've been out of college.
Okay. So on that end, it's like, as I said, let's go with Nicolette. Nicolette. So who is Nicolette and how did you get here?
So I had no intention of ever being in the electronics or engineering space ever. I like to tell people I thought I was going to be Barbara Walters, right? And I
saw that on your profile, LinkedIn profile. Is fantastic.
I'm still stuck on that. One day it'll happen. When I think we should talk about Lenny. I really do. I'd like to talk about Lenny for a second, because it's quite funny actually. Lenny was the copy editor over at Hearst Electronic Products, and he happened to be related through in-laws, through whoever, to me. And I met him for the first time, and he said, I was not working there at the time, and I was looking for a job. And he said to me, I work at this magazine. And he takes out the magazine from his briefcase, and I said, that's the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life, Len. And that was my first encounter with her electronic products. And 6 months later, he gave me a call. He said, do me a favor, please send me your resume. And I went to go interview over at EP, and I really believed it was the most boring thing ever, but it's not. So that started my journey in the electronic space. And I love Lenny very much, and I miss him dearly.
Yeah, Lenny was great. Like I come from a writing background, right? And I used to say in my writing, like if it's not copy edited, it's like, what's wrong with this guy, right? And Lenny, one of the beautiful things is he would make us all sound so smart. Like it was amazing.
mean, exudes basically makes you feel, it makes you feel the center of attention, that you're putting in your input on everything value. There's everything matters and everything has a value to what you say, which is fantastic. That is a charismatic person that inspired both of you, it looks like.
You really
Right?
did.
Well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So moving forward, Bryan, on your end, you've had a long history in this industry.
I have, yeah.
And, tell us a little bit, like a synopsis of where you started and how you got here and where you are today.
Yeah. So, I mean, I originally, started out, like I said, my goal, Nicolette wanted to be, Barbara Walters. My whole goal was to be a writer, but I always loved tech as a kid, built a lot of electronics, right? Even growing up, at one point I actually even owned a computer company, and sort of where things started merging to me. And I got into media, but I got into media when, people were really starting to build technology around websites, right? And having that background of writing and coding and programming and building, it all just sort of came together in the right place at the right time. And at one point, I actually owned a computer company, so where we manufactured boutique like gaming PCs, right?
Really?
This was before Alienware got really big and blew it out of the water and got bought by Dell. And we had this little boutique, computer company, and we didn't know how to market, right? And this is like
Go figure.
early 2000, right? Quake 3.
Yeah.
Quake 3. Okay.
Cool, yeah.
So we had no way to market. We had no money to market our computers, right? Basically, what we did is we built like high-end gaming servers. We ran all these games that everyone was playing online. This was before like Xbox type things where it was easy to join game servers. And we'd run the instances of these games actually on our computers, right? And people are like, wow, if this could run multiple instances of this game, I should get this machine. And basically our whole marketing budget was this server brought to you by X company. That was literally our whole marketing budget. And we sold, thousands of machines by doing that. So we were just innovative at the time because we had no budget, and we looked at a solution. Where are our users? How do we really connect with them? And that sort of brought it together for me in the marketing aspect from the first step.
That's when the light bulb went off. Like,
that's when the light bulb went off, right? About creating real solutions that actually work for what you're trying to do.
That's great. So let's go to the point. Is like, how did both of you come together and create this great media company, Insomnicat?
So we worked at Hearst together, which is where we both know Lenny from. After that, we actually, a lot of people know the history of where EP got sold, and there's been so many different media acquisitions in the space. We actually built a site called Design It. In partnership with, I don't know if you know the guys at Electronic Specifier, Steve Rainier, Tim, those guys, great guys.
Awesome.
Yeah,
the
awesome.
most people you'll ever meet. I just have to say.
Steve, if you're listening, right? So we built this with them, and then basically what happened is, we built these tools, we sold it to them. We were working, doing some other stuff, and then we just sort of realized like so many media companies were doing it wrong, right? And there were so many other ways, just like you are with your show. There's so many different ways to communicate and bring it up to the way it should be now, right? And so many media companies, and this is all of them, right? They're concerned like, I need to sell like so many display ads, and I need to do this, and there's these very traditional things. But is that really the correct thing always for the companies, always for the users? And how do you take that and look at that and really create something that actually has a huge amount of value? And to us, we look at it, the term we use is meaning making. How do we look at everything that's going on, right? Take all the data, because we love data too. We love data and science, and, and take that and actually make real meaning that actually goes and actually creates real solutions for companies as well as the users to create real viable actions. And, I think some of the experience we had in the past, and Nicolette looks like she wants to say something.
Yeah. So I just want to back up for a second. So that was, to kind of where Bryan left off before he got really excited about meaning making. People, there was always something that we wanted to do. We knew we wanted to do something. It's something that we had talked about, and to help these companies, right? Mm-hmm. So what we wanted to do, what it's really about is solutions, and what is the solution? So we kind of stray away, and what, meaning making is like this mysterious term, but it's really just about giving people what they actually need, and not a prepackaged, hey, just buy some stuff that we have because this is what we've always done, So what can we do to help you actually solve a problem that you have? Because your problem is unique and every company is unique,
Right. And, if you look at it in terms of content marketing, we see a lot of companies spending money on, on content. And a lot of times they'll write these like really crazy white papers and then 4 people watch them, or they'll create these videos and they'll have like 3 views on YouTube. Right. Well, why did you create, like media making is really understanding what's going to work, because everyone is unique in their situation. And taking that data, taking the blend of who they are and what's really happening with their users, right? And understanding that, and and coming back to teaching all companies to be media companies, because once you have a website, it doesn't matter how big your company is or how small, you are a media company, and you're now interacting with those users. Right. And it's not about going through that third party; they're coming to your site. How are you interacting with them?
Yeah, I mean, I also was saying that you posted, it says like bringing a perfect blend of creativity and science to a product development on all levels. So that's really what you're putting together and creating in today's world, the media companies. And that's where I wanted to start with. That is really, we're in a current and very 2020 has been a very, very fascinating year, and it accelerated everything. And I think for you guys, you guys have started about a year or 2 years ago, Insomnicat. How long ago was it? Yeah.
2019, January.
2019, so begin 2019. So now you got 2019, you started to get your legs going, and now you got 2020. Everything's an accelerator. Everybody's moving forward, and we as an unforeseen circumstances that we're in, unprecedented with all the stuff that's going on in the world. So it's accelerated everything. And what have you seen change in the last 2 years? What it is today, and how it's accelerated? How is Insomnicat helping its customers? As I said, turning all companies into media companies. How do you guys do that? How do you decipher that and take it apart?
Did you want to answer, Nicolette?
Well, I wanted to start by saying, I think for the most part, companies have realized, okay, content marketing is important. I think that's understood, and that's not a given, because there are other industries where they don't know that yet. They're just kind of getting there. And I think what I'm seeing personally is, okay, we've got content marketing done. We know we have to create content. Now what? Now what am I doing? So that's kind of where I'll kick it to you, Bryan.
Yeah, and I think the way we were positioning our company, it fell very much in line with what happened with a lot of companies and where they were going, because we were always looking at, well, what are the things down the road? What really needs to happen for these companies? Like, many companies were focused on getting leads from, say, other sources, right? Versus actually generating the leads themselves through their content marketing, or even selling products, So really, we were at the point where we were already doing that. So before this hit, we were already positioned. Like, I feel like we were very blessed, because even during this pandemic, we actually gained a lot of clients.
Yeah.
We gained a lot of clients because what we were doing, the solutions we had built were designed, for where we saw it going for all these companies. And, we like I said, I feel very blessed that we were able to gain clients and actually provide solutions for them that really worked in that aspect. And that's across the board on all different levels of types of content and types of solution. And it doesn't mean that the solution is just content. It doesn't mean the solution is just video. It just really depends on their unique situation and what their goals are.
Right. So, and I will say that with the virtual environment, though, there is, because we are, like Bryan said, already doing video and working on live chats and live interaction, we were already doing that. So now everybody's kind of like, oh, I can't go to a trade show. What am I going to do? We're already there, So we are fortunate in that sense.
And I think one of the other places, where we have a lot of experience where that fell into play, as a lot of companies are understanding they are media companies, right? That whole theory of teaching them how to be media companies, what's happened is they've come to us to help their staffs. because they're focusing on their own content, and we're working with their content teams to actually get them to where they need to be and understanding it the way they need to, as well as even doing a lot of trainings, on social, like LinkedIn trainings and things like that, where we've actually worked with a lot of companies, and even influencers have come to us. Some of our clients are big influencers that have come to us and say, well, how do I create a media property now on top of my influence? So you have it coming in both directions, because what's happening is those pieces are converging together in today's sort of media demographic, right? You have those influencers and you have those media properties, and how does all that work in conjunction, and how are your employees or your company seen as the expert and the influencer? And then, I mean, don't even get started. We go into super fans and things like that and all craziness, but yeah.
Well, overall, I mean, you just hit the nail on the head right there. Is like you have the corporate side does it, and then you have personal brand. And I was going to ask that question: how does the corporate brand lead into building a personal brand that goes with the company? I think that's what something you guys are training with the staff and sales staff to do. Correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. So those are the big mediums. I think in today's world is how we knew how to do corporate branding, but now everybody's, since as you just said, we can't travel, we can't visit, we can't do sales visits, we can't do seminars, we can't. So it's now building a personal brand that people can relate to, as I said, with a human connection, that they feel, okay, we can give it the opportunity. And today our DNA is all over the World Wide Web, right?
Yeah.
And everybody wants to do business with somebody they look at. So someone, if you, as I said, a prospect. So I think that's one thing I really connected with, the content you guys are putting out there with everything, how marketing, how to build a brand, what's the difference, the websites. You guys have hundreds of videos on YouTube. You guys go to Insomniacat's YouTube channel. They have hundreds of videos. They're fun, they're interactive, they're long, short. They have every type of version, and really showing people in an original way and having a fun way. It's not, as I said, today, I think more of us it's not all about the style, glamour, and professional video. It's just about connecting and building that connection and building the influence, as well as in the electronics industry. We can get into that. Is we have all the leaders. The leaders are actually influencers. And I think the influencer name has been trashed by the social media a little bit, but these CEOs, executives, thought leaders, they're all influencers in some way.
And some of them, I mean, some of them are some of the smartest people, right? You've ever come across. Like, there are some of the CEOs or the higher ups, or even just people that actually work at these companies that are just really brilliant, when you start working with them, and they don't necessarily always have to be the CEO. Some of them are, I don't want to say rank and file, because that's really the wrong word, but they don't have this glamorous title, right? But they're really smart. They know what they're doing, and they have a lot of clout, when you talk to them, and there's a lot of knowledge there that they should share. They should share with everyone.
Yeah, I agree. I think the electronics industry
I really do. I think they are starting to realize that. I can think of some companies that are saying, okay, let's use some of our team and start positioning them as influencers, in the electronic space. Let's get this person in front of a camera. I think it's really important, because as we talk about in our LinkedIn training, personal brand and your company's brand kind of work hand in hand. So you want to elevate one, you have to work on your personal brand, even if it's within the guidelines of your company,
Right.
Correct. You're correct. I mean, we're all learning on that, and you're great. Everybody's learning, but that's another thing you just hit there, is that there's a lot of, because the corporate usually send the engineer, because we're in the hardware business, in the hardware business selling, but usually they put the engineer and create a video content of an engineer and telling of a product. But sometimes the only engineers are relate to it. The normal person, the buyers they're not really interested in it, so it's like, how do we just make a full color version, not just for the engineers, for everybody else to understand the product, to be engaged, and to have some of those, as I said, executives or people up there, not just even the CEOs, the executives that have that connection, that have the tonality, have fun, they can create image of the company and be that influencer, and create a following. And at the end of the day, we're all tied to this in our tablets and everything. And the B2C market, in my opinion, is bleeding into the B2B market now. And it's influencing the way we make decisions, the way we research, the way we buy things. So that's really what I think that you guys with your platform are teaching these companies to pivot and embrace the change and lean into that.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because so many of them have so many interesting stories, right? That just aren't out there. And whether it's the engineer or the CEO or the marketing people, there's so many people with interesting stories, and and at the end of the day, also the solution to problems that other people have. And I think that's one of the things, and I'm going to let Nicolette talk about, because I think she articulates that more than we do. But when we talk to people a lot, especially, on our show, we really look at doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, our main goal, we totally unrelated, but not really totally unrelated to electronics, but we do, interview all kinds of folks, any good humans, right? And any good humans, we call them good humans. And this can be, we were talking to a 3D printing guru at TE, but all the way down to, someone who's a hiring expert during the pandemic. It just, and everything in between. If you have something valuable to share, and we want to solve a problem, right? That's the ultimate goal. So when Bryan says we're solutions based, it's across the board. It's not just, hey, this is what we say. This is what we try to do across the board, even for ourselves.
Correct. I mean, any business now today, we are not just a generic, we have a product. Everybody has a solution or a 360 solution for a challenge that's in front of them. As yourself, you're creating a solution, creating these companies to be more media companies, to embrace the change and to move forward, but also coming back to all the stories. And that's one thing, is every company has a story. As Nicolette has put that there, everybody has a story. You guys all lead with a story. All these big corporations, it can be tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, all have a story. And sometimes it's not shared. And that story is empowering as well. It's going to reflect. I mean, it's, as I said, that's maybe 100 people see it, but maybe it's better than 0 people seeing the story.
Right.
These are things of sharing of the company's structure, how they were founded, the core values. And people nowadays is as we call it, it's like they like the challenges. They empathize with that. They have all this
to talk about your challenges, right? I mean, you said, I tell everybody, I challenge anyone to come to me and tell me that they can't find a story in something. Please, I would love to meet someone who can actually prove me wrong, because there is, I mean, when it comes to this industry, a lot of people think, hey, I'm going to put up some product specs and there's my story, and they'll call it a story. People have called that a story. I'm like, what? This is a data sheet. I don't know what this is. This is not a story. What challenges is it solving? What about that bigger picture? How did it, how was it created? There's always, even about the most mundane little component.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think one of the things that always amazes me, and I know I say this a lot, but it amazes me how much interest people have in this little snippet of time, whether it's someone's life, like we see all these, video clips, like someone's life, how much interest other people have in that. And bringing it back to, companies, those origin stories, it's that same thing. We're attracted to that little bit of time. Maybe that story is only 30 seconds, right? But we're very interested in what that story is, what that origin story is. How did people get here? It was one of the first questions you asked us, right? How did we get where we were? Why do we do the things we do? And people are very curious about that. And why? Because it connects them to it. It doesn't just make it a brand, or it doesn't make it a person. It makes a personal connection, right? And they start connecting with it on a different level. And I mean, in many ways, even the sheer principles of content marketing, are that same thing. How do you connect that story? How do you connect that person at that level versus just going, I'm trying to sell you a product, or here's some data around this part or piece or, company.
So on that end, it's like, as I said, because it's personal, no matter what. So you might think, what does a personal brand mean to you, and why? How do you guys define personal brand?
You want to go?
Oh, I was going to let you go first, because you'll probably articulate it a lot better than I will.
So when I think about a personal brand, it's and this is something that I learned from Bryan, right? I mean, if you remove me from a company, if I work at a company, if you remove me, I am still that professional, right? So I need to build up, although I work for a company, let's say at the time, I need to build up who I am as a professional. So I need to go ahead and get involved in what's going on in the industry. I need to position myself. I need to offer valuable information, so that if the day comes that I'm no longer with that company, I'm still seen as some sort of thought leader, so that's how I always interpret personal brand.
Yeah. And I think a good way, and I say this usually when we teach about personal brand, the first thing I say is think about your LinkedIn account, right? There's tons of people watching us right now on LinkedIn. Do you use your work email, Or do you use your personal email to sign in, right? And most people are using their personal email. Why is that? Because that part of their life follows them throughout their life. It's not that snippet of time or those 5 years or 2 years where you work at that company. It is you. So your personal brand is you. You do you. You know what I mean? Like that's the reality. You should sort of run it how you see fit, right? And you should build that brand for you, right? I can be a little silly. Do you know what I mean? In my personal brand, I sort of like that. It's how I am as a human being. I'm a little bit goofy. I like to laugh. I like to enjoy myself. And that's part of my brand, right? And so it's always you doing the things that are you, sharing your knowledge and your expertise, because that in your style, right? Because no one else is you, as we all learn when you're a kid. The special thing about you is you, right? Because no one else is like your, I don't know what the Dr. Seuss saying is, but you get my point. Like, you're unique, and your unique spin on things is what's going to attract other people to you and to your brand and want to follow you or listen to you or listen to your story. And don't get me wrong, you need to do the work and be an expert in whatever area you want to be an expert in, right?
But not really. You don't really. Okay, so
okay, true. I see where you're going. I see where you're going.
Okay, so the first fact is going to be, but I work for X company and I have to do what they, how do I build my personal brand if I'm connected to a company? So obviously do everything within your corporate guidelines. However, you don't really need to be, I don't want to say you don't need to be smart, but you really don't. You don't need to be that smart to position yourself as a thought leader, because you can start relying on the other. Do it. We're not even that. No, I'm kidding. We're kind of smart. So, but what you do is you leverage the influence of the other thought leaders, their knowledge, and you start sharing that. So now you're not getting controversial, right? I work for the company. I can't, step outside certain lines. Maybe you can't be as crazy as Bryan, but what you can do is start talking about the key issues that affect your company's target audience, right? Mm-hmm. You can start talking about the thought leaders in the industry that are not in the industry. They're kind of in the industry, but not competitors or anything like that, right? So you're talking, I don't know, Steve Jobs or whoever, and you start talking about the real thought leaders and sharing your personal take on them, right? And even if you just shared other people's stuff, you start to become that source of information, so people know, oh, this guy always shares a lot of good trending things, and he's got,
And I think the point there is there's stuff that you share from your company perspective to be known in your company. Like, say, for instance, because, if you're a salesperson, right? So there's certain things you want to share, but then there are certain things that affect the entire industry that you should share, because you're sharing because it's good information for your peers, whether they're competitors or not competitors, to know, right? We all, as we share information, we all lift each other up. We basically share information, and that's good, because it helps the entire industry. It helps the entire electronic space or whatever industry you're in. So sharing that information, and your knowledge, it's important to other factors. Now, I'm not saying don't share, IP or things like that are important to your company. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, we're back to Nicolette's point, like general knowledge that, or general industry insight, like here's where the market's going in 2030, we're going to have, we're going to have drone-based delivery for everything, so, stuff like that, absolutely share.
I mean, I just like you hit it right there. Collaboration, sharing everything, just like we're doing right now. We're sharing information. We're sharing to people out there, whoever's tuning in. Actually, we got a comment here on your scarf here. I'm going to bring this up here. Yeah, look at this. Like your scarf, Nicolette. Someone's because I like your scarf. Here we got a live comment.
Okay, I'm going to derail this conversation real quick. I'm going to pull up Bryan. So I told everybody that I know last week, I am now becoming a scarf person, whether you like it or not. And I'm going to start wearing scarves so that people get used to that. So thank you so much, because it's working.
You got your branding. Your branding is working.
Sorry.
Do what I want, basically. That's it.
Yeah.
But all this going forward, the branding and things going, but I want to fall into like your LinkedIn. I mean, how does your LinkedIn training and protocol for your clients and things work? What do you do in the steps in the protocol? LinkedIn learning, I would say LinkedIn learning.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different, I'm sorry, Bryan.
No, go.
So there are different ways we can approach this. So this can, we have approached this from, hey, let's train your staff, or more personal training where, hey, let's look at social as a whole and let's see what you can do to improve and kind of spread, increase brand awareness, your personal brand awareness, your company's brand awareness. How can you leverage these channels? So, like, I'm going to go back to solutions based. It's really about what that specific company or entrepreneur, solopreneur is looking for at that time. And there's, various levels.
Right. And based on sort of what they're looking to do after talking with them, are we even the right fit to help them? Number one, do you know what I mean? And based on their goals is really what we look at for training. And a lot of times we'll do big giant group trainings where it's hundreds of people, from a company. But what we always do is we also try to break it down and have sort of individual small sessions. Because even though they're a company and there's certain things from a company perspective that work for the entire company, there are things that they need to do as an individual brand that we want to make sure they understand. They understand how to do it from their individual perspective, not just from, their big corporation perspective or their company perspective. So
and we do this virtually. So it can be done. I know we're in virtual times. It can be done virtually. So let's say it's a giant virtual session, but we'll still get on the phone and have those more intimate conversations, because maybe somebody doesn't want to ask a question to the chat, or, maybe somebody doesn't want to raise their hand in a large group. So it gives you an opportunity to talk about the individual's problems.
Yeah. So you're curating to their needs. You curate the learning experience, because as I said, LinkedIn is not just it is a social media platform for B2B, B2C businesses and that end, but it's so robust now. There's so many different angles you can get into. And that's one thing. It's not like it takes, you say, one training or two training. It takes multiple trainings. And again, you have to put in the reps. It's like anything else. You have to put in the reps to learn an expert. And you can't be an expert or do one post or do one video and think you get results. Have you guys gone into that with some of your clients, some people who's like, they don't get again, we get into the affirmation point of it. It's like you put something out, they don't get the response back. How do you guys answer that?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna start with, some people think like interacting on LinkedIn is just liking something. Do you know what I mean? Or liking their company's post. Okay, I did my company duty in terms of LinkedIn, right? I think, to your point, Rob, it's so much more than that. There are so many different angles of creating content, interacting. And it doesn't mean that you're, necessarily, and you should post, but it doesn't mean you can't interact and have these, like, I'm going to write this great article just for LinkedIn. You could interact with what other people are even saying and become part of that conversation and put your spin on things, so there are many ways, to interact on LinkedIn. And I think the biggest thing, Nicolette, for people is that hurdle of getting over the fact that they're actually the fear of interacting, right? The fear of putting themselves out there.
Yeah. I mean, and let's just swing it back to the engineering electronics industry. I mean, to even some there's a fear there, there's a fear there. It's intimidating to start that conversation. Right. And so I think one of the things companies really need to do is start to encourage and Bryan used to do this all the time, encourage everybody to kind of get involved with social, whatever platform that is, whatever platform's best for your business. But again, we encourage in our LinkedIn trainings, we encourage employees to get involved with their personal brand too. That's really important. And even though you're posting and you're feeling like nothing's happening, what do I say about content all the time? One piece of content is not going to change your life. Same applies here. That's not how it goes. Unfortunately, there is no instant gratification. I'm trying, but I haven't gotten there yet. So I'll let you know if I ever get there.
Yeah, because as I said, there's a lot of people that are behind the scenes that they don't comment, but they all view their, there's like voyeurs, like they just like to watch. They watch. There's a lot of behind the scenes. There's a lot of behind the scenes. I've seen it because I've just like, I mean, I think Bryan and I have talked that he's famous now. Someone that, he ran into somebody on there. Myself, I travel, especially in Asia. Last few years, I mean, I've been traveling to India, Southeast Asia. I put out content, not on the regular basis like we do now, but before. People say, I saw your video or I saw this. And they came up to me and I'm like, I don't even know you. Am I even friends with you? Just like, how do you share? I think, Bryan, why don't you share what happened to you last week?
So I was at, for those of you who know me and who don't know me, I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And I was, we were training and I walk in and someone's like, you're that guy that makes the LinkedIn videos. So I'm like, yeah, I'm like, am I connected to this person? You know, someone I don't recall ever meeting. And then, you know, my buddy, Greg Melita, who I hope he's on here, he's a great guy, but he's like, yeah, he's famous on LinkedIn, you know? So it was pretty funny because, you know, some people just, you know, your content gets out there and people start seeing it and people start interacting with it and knowing who you are. And that's really, you know, building that personal brand, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's, as I said, it all goes back and forth. We can build this, and these are great examples of building, and also as consistency, putting in the reps. Don't expect you're getting it. As I said, I've got to myself, what type of ROI are you getting from doing? I'm like, I'm not even worrying. That's not even on my mind. I'm just building consistency and building value. That I'm showing up. I'm showing up, sharing information, collaborating. I am showing up. Maybe in the future things will come, but at the end of the day, it's like we're all collaborating, we're working, and we're showing up in person, online, because we can't do it. We can't do it. I mean, as I said, in person at trade shows or customer visits anymore like we used to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I want to go back to is, like you brought up, because you're a black belt jiu-jitsu, is what is this fighter philosophy clothing brand that you started?
So that's a fun one. That's a fun one. I wear my hat that way, but that's a fun one. You know, it was interesting. So way back when, you know, a lot of media companies that, you know, they have all these products, right? But a lot of media companies don't sell anything, do they? Right? They only sell their services or their products. And the sheer concept of content marketing is to sell products through content, correct?
Right.
I don't understand. If you've never sold anything, it's really hard to understand how to sell anything, right? With that e-commerce part of it is that many manufacturers in the electronic space, distributors go through, you know? So if you can't understand it firsthand, it's hard, you know, it's hard. So basically the concept was, well, let's create something. And just being in jiu-jitsu, I was like, well, let's create a brand and, you know, some rash guards and this and that. And, you know, for that specific group, and really understand what it means at a very deep level to use those tactics to sell things. And then Nicolette's like, well, let's create, you know, other things like, you know, the shirt, let's create like a clothing line. And we sort of really evolved it over time to just various things. And even that has like this inspirational aspect to it. You know, it's really about inspiring people. But it was really
only, guys, good humans only.
Good humans only, right? And it was really a giant experiment in content marketing that sort of took off. So that's really what it was. And then, you know, we catered to one community and expanded into other communities. And basically, it was a giant experiment in content marketing. I don't know how else to explain it, Nicolette. You know, with a purpose, with a real purpose to really inspire people.
Messaging. You had a messaging out there, right? That's the messaging behind it.
Absolutely. And the goal was to share inspiration, you know, with people, you know, and positive messages.
And see, we create content, right? I mean, I'm going to go back to, you were working on this long before I got here, creating content in order to sell. And I think we've proven that is effective. Right?
That's right. But a clothing brand, right? Of all things neither one of us really had any experience in, you know? Well,
as you say, a lot of people out there, even the celebrities, athletes, they all of a sudden get into the clothing business, or they get into a makeup or something and apparel, and because they're known brand, people they like the person, they like the human, so they associate themselves. You know what? I want to use their product because they use this, and I support them. And that's really where, you know, I think that's really how that builds. And it doesn't matter what scale you're at, you're scaling like that. You know, people like it to be a good human. People like the messaging. People like the, you know, the fighter philosophy, and they start, hey, I want to support it. And then it starts building momentum and going out there. Yeah. I think it's like, as I said, it's branding, personal brand with a corporate, you have a corporate brand with a personal brand. And really, we just hit the nail in a little circle right there. That's it. That's really what it is for content branding. That's really what we're doing.
Yeah, I have a feeling, Rob, we're going to be manufacturing scarves soon.
I'm thinking about it. Yeah. Bryan comes up with the craziest ideas, and then he's like, all right, Nicolette, go ahead. We're going to do this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. They are crazy. But I think it's always like with this purpose of learning something, right? Like, what are we actually going to learn out of this experience? Like, what are we going to take away? And then be able to share that information. Like, I think everything we've learned, or everything I've learned throughout my life, you know, I feel like I've shared with other people, because I feel like that's the purpose, right? So they could build on it. It's not about just me going, do it this way, right? It's about going, hey, let's try this, because everyone you meet, you know, could give you valuable input to what you're doing. Everyone has knowledge that is valuable, and everyone has something to share, you know, and I think that's the biggest thing. Like, if you're open to that, you're going to get a lot of input. You're going to get other insight. Like, you know, Nicolette said, like, Bryan's like, hey, let's do this, you know, but here's the thing. I may have this really crazy idea, and Nicolette will be like, okay, but if we do X, Y, and Z, like, that will make it work, or that will make it better. And yeah, you know, always add to it. It's how great things get built. You know, it's how great things get built.
And sometimes I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
There are times.
We've built entire sites and have scrapped them. Thousands
of registrants. We've been like, yeah, we're done with this.
It doesn't make sense sometimes for, you know, our mission or the users or whatever the case is. Even though, you know, we're able to get registrants, it doesn't mean that it necessarily, you know, is something to continue with. And I think that's a lot of companies are afraid of things like that. And I think that's why we see a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of just broken products in every industry. A lot of broken products out there. They build something, they put so much investment into it that they just keep driving forward instead of creating something that works from the beginning and understanding it at a deep enough level to understand all the components that will actually make it work.
Well, that takes me back to
that site and saying, hey, that was a giant failure. It was a waste of time. You know, that's not it. We learned, okay, we got some registrants out of it. We know how to get those now if we ever need to. And that, you know, you learn, you move on, cut your losses, get out of there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that takes me to the products of what is all the different services. I want to make sure we miss this. Is what does Insomnicat do? What type of services do you do? Not just content making. What are all the criteria that you hit for companies?
Yeah. So we laugh about it, but we always say we have 6 facets, right? And I'm probably going to miss one here. So Nicolette, please. But we do a lot of consulting, right? We work with a lot of companies in terms of teaching them how to be media companies. Believe it or not, we do a lot of back-end media, where media companies actually hire us to build backends for them or solve problems, whether they have a problem with the current product, or they need something changed, or they need it evolved. We have a lot of media companies actually coming to us for solutions. We also own and build a whole bunch of sites, you know, that out there that are, you know, to us needed in the industry. You know, one of them is, you know, partprocure.com, which is in the procurement space. You know, another one that we're deeply involved with is edesignit.com, you know, that really serve a function for the electronic space. We do a ton of content marketing, Nicolette, right? With a lot of great companies out there. I mean, we love working with the companies we work with, you know, we really do. You know, we also actually work with a lot of influencers and do a lot of influencer marketing pieces out there, as well as actually a lot of technical services like, you know, building of sites, database services, and even the same, you know, and it's interesting too, like we have one project we're working on now where it's not the biggest site in the world, but someone came to us and said, hey, this other media companies wouldn't help this guy. And we were like, you know what, we'll talk to him. And we talked to him and we really liked them. You know, we really liked him. And we said, you know what, you know, and it's not the biggest project in the world, but we really like this guy. And we said, you know, we could really actually change it for him and actually solve his problem. So, you know, let's do that. So we work with really, really big companies like Fortune 125 and above, but we'll also work with small companies if we have the right solution and it's a right fit. And I know that Nicolette's probably going to say one of our company mottos here, like who we do or don't like to work with.
Yes, I don't know, profanities are allowed, but you know, we're all about the good humans.
We're all about good humans. I mean, I love that. You know, the thing is, just like you said, it doesn't matter how big they are, small they are, but there's a purpose. And just like I said, people do business with people they like. Just like someone came to you, like the person, and you want to give them opportunity. You know, I'll help you out. You know, and these are the types of things that happens. And I love that messaging. I love that how you guys spread that, and that basically the mission of the company.
And there have been clients that we don't want to work with, even though they would, you know, even though it's money, you know, and maybe good money, we don't want to work with them. And that's okay. You know, that's okay. And that's for every company to decide, you know. And I just want to add, Bryan, you were talking about content. And, there's also, we talked about virtual, now we're in this virtual world. So we are also involved in a lot of what we're calling live chats, right? So yeah, it's your webinar, but let's actually make it more interactive. Let's actually get some more engagement from the audience. There's one I can think of off the top of my head that I thought was going to be so dull, and it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, and it was about a topic that I was like, oh gosh, how are we going to get engagement? It was a lot of fun, so we can turn, again, anything into a story. And another thing that we've been working on a lot are interactive pieces. So, whether that be interactive infographics or, quizzes. So in the electronics industry. So, just because this is the industry, you don't have to just create content, right? Let's make it interactive.
Right.
So we do some stuff like that too.
And I think a good point there that Nicolette's pointing out with some of the interactive content, it's, we talk about storytelling a lot, but how do you really tell a story, not just through one piece of content, but through your entire site, across your entire brand? And some of these interactive pieces that we build for some companies actually do that. They tell the story of the company or the brand or part of their story. Maybe it just depends on what it is, right? But in a very interactive way, because, we're here on video, right? The world has become a very visual place. So how do you go and tell those stories across many different, medias, not just like, I'm going to write a story and this is going to be the story of my company and this is going to be, but how do you tell it across your entire website? How do you tell it across video? So we, and I think the biggest thing with us though, we like projects we have fun on, like to Nicolette's point, we have sometimes live chat and she's like, wow, how are we going to make this interesting? But we get excited about it because and what always amazes me, I love how amazing human beings are just in general, or most human beings, let's say, right? And you start talking to them and you start getting to who they are and who their story is and their interests, and you get them to light up about their passions. I always say excitement breeds excitement, right? If someone gets excited about something, everyone's going to get excited about it. And I think that's one of the most important things, where if you get excited about what they're doing, they get excited, and then the users get excited and they want to interact. They want to interact with that person, or there was one person where almost every question was geared towards that one person on the panel because they were very excited about what they did and they had a whole bunch of knowledge, and people feed off that. They want to connect with that.
The energy, they bring the energy to the room, and everybody wants to connect with that message. And that's how the messaging goes across, is bring the tonality, the energy, the excitement. And everybody wants to go, just like there's a big line for something. Why is everybody in line? What's going on? And they jump in line just to get in line. They don't want to see what's going on. That must be exciting, right? They just want to follow it, So these are things, the little ways of the cues to see what we can do is create excitement. And you will create a audience, but it's like, if it's, and the audience will come and watch. Sometimes it's not for everybody, but it is you'll get more than you'll lose. You'll get more audience than you'll lose some, in my opinion. So it's, as I said, it's not everybody's going to like myself, doesn't like the way I talk. At the end of the day, it's not everybody's going to like you. But you will, you will relate to us a lot.
For everybody, Rob. We are not for everyone.
Right. Here's the thing, but they'll find that interest in that little sliver of your life for 30 seconds if you make it interesting enough and you tell the story, right? And that's whether they like you or don't like you. Doesn't, in some ways it doesn't matter because they've interacted with you, right? So that you've touched them in some way, hopefully.
Exactly. So wrapping this up a little bit, I got the question for you guys. I want to say is like, what do you see for Insomnicat Media and also the electronics industry for the future, for end of the year to 2000? What is your guys' what's your predictions and things that you're seeing, what you're involved in, and what you see for the next couple 2 to 3 years ahead with the media side?
I think from the, sorry, Nicolette.
No, go ahead.
I think from the media side, you're going to see a lot of different technologies come into play. You're going to see a lot more interactivity. You're going to see, and you see this already, but you're going to see a lot more companies really understanding how to be media companies, really focused on aggregating their audience, telling their stories, and not so much dependent on other means of it being told for them, but actually being able to do that with their staff, and even their fans, right? Because every company has, these fans or people that are interested in their product line. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that over the next year.
And probably more emphasis on the virtual world, of course, given the times that, folks who maybe never did any webinars might start too, and folks who were always doing webinars might find the next new thing. And if you want to find the next new thing, we're happy to help and plug ourselves for a second. But what I'd really like to see is a lot more of that personal branding in the industry. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, I mean, I see the same thing, because that's one thing. Is I know your guys' energy you have, both of your energy, putting on a webinar, you guys hosting a webinar will be fun and exciting. That, as we've experienced, there's a lot of monotone. I've listened to a lot. It's the excitement's not there. Also, there's no video. It's usually just a presentation, someone talking over it, things like this. So I think in Evolved, as you said, you guys are bringing excitement. There's not so many people. Our industry in general, electronics industry, is a blue ocean for the content. And I think we're just in the beginning infancy stage of things transitioning. And that's why I was so attracted to Insomnicat and your guys' media. It's like, wow, they're actually in here. They were one of the first to actually start this. And I was engaged, and I'm like, wow, I'm learning as well. These guys are got their stuff. And it's good because you have the experience. You had that experience you could bring into the relationships. And I'm really looking to the future of Insomnicat and how really you could take it to the next level. And hopefully we can do some more of these live events with you guys. What's going on in the industry? What's going on? What's the changes are happening? Because as I said, from March of 2020 to now August, everything has changed. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what's going to happen when we hit December and January 2021. Celebrate like that. We don't know. There's a lot.
Isn't as bad.
Yeah.
I keep telling people, why are you hoping for 2021? You don't know. Maybe it's worse than this year, Don't get too excited.
I tell everybody, just live for the future, evolve, invest, make change. Don't wait for things to go backwards. They're not. We got to move forward. And that's why, as I probably tell your clients too, just don't wait. We need to move forward and pivot and embrace and learn the new habits and put the reps in it and get educated, between all the information out there.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because, I'm a true believer in the prep work, right? And so many of the things we did were geared because we could see, forget about the things that happened in 2020, right? You could see where it was going. 2020 just pushed it there real quick. It gave it that kick, and got it there real quick. So, like I said, I feel like we were blessed because we had the foresight to go, okay, this is where things are really going. And these are the things that companies are going to need to do. And we were ready there, when it happened. And, and as we go forward, we're going to build, bigger, better and badder stuff, so.
Well, awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for being on here. It's been great discussing this with you. It's great content, great information. Again, if you guys don't know, Insomnicat Media, they are the company electronics industry. They act not just do electronics. You guys do a lot of other. What other diversities do you guys go into? You guys everything.
We work in a lot of different industries. We like the tech spaces though, like engineering, but we touch a lot of different industries.
Once again, guys, well, thank you very much. As I'm messaging this, everybody out there, remember, be smart, be thoughtful, be generous, and I'll see you guys again soon. Thank you very much. And man, be a good human. And be a good human. There it is. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
And